Step V. The 10 Kabbalistic keys. The preceding 4 steps of this course may, so to speak, be regarded as a preparation of the Kabbalistic, that is, the creative mode of action. The 5th step is to teach the Kabbalist, in detail, the 10 Kabbalistic keys by which the numbers from 1 to 10 are to be understood, whereby their analogous relations will also be pointed out. But, of course, I cannot specify all the analogies that have references to numbers 1 to 10, since these alone would fill a whole book. Therefore, I confine myself to giving some examples which will enable the intuitive student to find further relations himself. The numbers 1-10 are Kabbalistic cardinal numbers corresponding to the original divine ideas by which the visible and the invisible world were created. Number 1. Number 1 is the first number in the universe and represents the highest form, that is, God Himself. The manifested light, and everything that was made of it, is God in His oneness, which is also reflected in all other numbers in all possible states of manifestation. Very wisely, in Hebrew Kabbalah, the one is called Kether, that is, crown. Whenever the deity was to be identified, this was done by number 1. Some systems, especially the Kabbalistic system, also mention the 0, the so-called Ein Sof, but this is incomprehensible, unimaginable for man, and only serves as a hint that apart from the one nothing else and nothing higher can exist that would be comprehensible to a man's spirit. Graphically speaking, number 1 is symbolized by a dot which represents, in the different systems, the symbol of divine unification, of becoming one with God. Someone who starts his spiritual development, from ignorance, at once with number 1 will sooner or later end with number 10, for 1 represents the omnipotence and 10 the deepest humility. The systems of initiation which begin with number 1 are indiscriminately called monistic systems in Hermetic science. The Kabbalist should always be aware of the fact that number 1 means highest cognition, highest unity, highest wisdom. All original ideas taken together form the one, God in His revelation. According to the Bible, number 1 is identified with the first day of creation, on which God said, "Let there be light." Apart from many other things, all evolution starts with this number. Number 2. Number 2 is the number of duality, of polarity, of the positive and the negative principle, thus, for instance, of the good and the evil, of truth and lie. In the material world, the 2 indicates electricity and magnetism, love and hate, light and shadow. In short, it is always a pole and its antipole, of which one could not exist without the other, or could not be told from the other. Kabbalistically seen, it refers to God and man. Number 2 appertains to those religions which regard God as something separate, no matter whether in respect to form, shape, a specific quality, or in an original idea, whereby the dualistic principle is to be found in all forms of existence. Number 2 also indicates the attitude towards the micro and the macrocosm, equal of whatever kind. Graphically, number 2 is represented by a horizontal line. Number 3. This number is graphically symbolized by a triangle. The 3 is the number of Akasa principle, of fate, of karma, and, planetarily seen, the 3 is attributed to the sphere of Saturn. Everything that was, that is and that will be, the mental as well as the astral and the material, originates from the Akasa principle, wherein the 3 is also to be found. Number 3 is the original idea of procreation, which manifests itself in the plus and the minus, that is, in man and woman who, in unification, beget the third, that is, the child. In man himself, the 3 is represented by spirit, soul and body. The 3 is also the number of intuition. All religious systems, in their faithful manifestation, have derived from this number. 3 is the number of life and death. It is the number of cognition in its highest form. Number 4. This number is the highest number for the Kabbalah expert as far as his practice is concerned, for it is a perfect representation of the tetragrammatronic principle. In the planetary system, number 4 is attributed to Jupiter. This number represents all 4 basic elements, fire, air, water and earth, the 4 points of the compass, east, west, south and north, the 4 fundamental features of God, omnipotence, wisdom, love and immortality, perfect consciousness. 4, therefore, is the number by which everything was made and realized in the micro and macrocosm. It is the number of law, order, justice and realization. At the same time, 4 is the number of everything that was created in the visible and the invisible worlds. As a divine original idea, number 4 means highest wisdom. It is also the number of length, width, height and depth. Graphically, or symbolically, number 4 is represented by a cross whose arms are of equal length, or by an equilateral quadrangle. Number 5. This number is the perfect representation of the microcosm, that is, of man in all his phases and forms of existence. In number 5, the working of the 4 elements is reflected, which is directed by the 5th element, the Akasa principle. The intuitive Quabbalist will know why it is the 5 that not only symbolizes man by the elements ruling within, but also by its Quabbalistic numerical order, for 5 is the half of 10 and 10 stands for the whole creation. The microcosm, that is, the miniature world, man, must be represented in its completeness by half of 10. Since the working of the 4 elements, ruled by the Akasa principle, is represented by number 5, this number also represents the power and the might, appertaining to the planet Mars. Consequently, everything that expresses an active power or might is in harmony with number 5. All influences that are affected by the power and the might of a human being appertain to this number. The whole active magic belongs to this numerical order. Number 5 is graphically represented by an equilateral pentagram, also called a pentagon. Number 6 in comparison to number 5, representing the microcosm, that is, man in his perfection. Number 6, on the other hand, represents the macrocosm in its perfection. Graphically, number 6 is expressed by an equilateral hexagram. Seen from the Quabbalistic angle, the 2 interlacing triangles point to the manifested light, to life, but also to the possible connection to God. The hexagram is also the symbol of the magician who, after having struggled through to the 6th sphere, the sphere of the sun, may attain the connection to God. This means that the Quabbalist must rise aloft to the Quabbalistic 6, the sun sphere, spiritually as well as psychically, if he wants to achieve a connection to number 1, that is, to God. 6 is the visible symbol of the Hermes plate, which starts with the word saying that which is above is also that which is below. The lower triangle of a hexagram denotes, in the magical sense, man with his 3-dimensional aspect of body, soul and spirit. The upper triangle of a hexagram points to the 3-dimensional unification and influence of divine power, divine virtues, etc., mentally, astrally and physically, in their connections from above. As already mentioned, number 6 represents the sun, called the Parath in Quabbala. From the physical point of view, it is our sun, around which the planets circle. Apart from this, macrocosmic magic, the magic of the spheres, is also expressed by number 6. Many more analogies to number 6 could be indicated, but the examples given above will be sufficient for the Quabbalist. Number 777 is the number of harmony, fertility, propagation and growing. It is also the number of love with all its phases, no matter whether the lowest form of love or the highest cosmic aspect of love is in question. Mercy, benevolence, virtuousness and happiness are also aspects of love and therefore appertain to number 7. Apart from this, 7 is the number of beauty, purity and harmony. With regard to astrology, 7 is the number of Venus, so that all methods and practices of the Venus magic, scale magic, also belong to this numerical category. Amongst other things, the 7 basic notes, octave, are also analogous to number 7, and so are the 7 tattvas, the 7 states of maturity, chakras, etc. The graphic representation of number 7 is an equilateral heptagon, septangle. There are, however, also other symbols for number 7, for instance, a great triangle with a square in its middle or, vice versa, a square with a triangle in its middle, depending on the number to be entered graphically. The square is sometimes replaced by a cross with arms of equal length which is drawn in the middle of a triangle. By doing this, one gets 7 points alluding to number 7. Many other things are analogous to this number, thus, for instance, the 7 spectral colors, the colors of the rainbow, etc. It will be the student's task to find out most of the analogies himself. Number 88. This is the number of the mind, the intellect, and thus the number of knowledge. Everything that comes under the scope of the intellect appertains to number 8. It is also the number of the spirit, of the mental body. In astrology, number 8 is analogous to Mercury. Its symbolic representation is the octagon formed by 2 interlacing squares. One square symbolizes the legality of the activity of the 4 elements, and the other square represents man with his quadrupolar attitude, the quadrupolar magnet, which is equipped with the 4 fundamental features of the spirit: volition, intellect, feeling and consciousness, without which there is no knowledge. The octagon is also a symbol of the positive and the negative effects of the elements in the micro and macrocosm. It stands to reason that all theoretical knowledge, besides any knowledge of magic, Kabbalah or any other science of this type, appertains to this number. Number 99. Number 9 is graphically symbolized by 3 equilateral triangles interlacing one another. It represents the original idea of the astral world, and everything else appertaining to the astral, including all its analogies, characteristics, etc. At the same time, 9 is the number of motion, of rhythm and thus, of life in its most subtle form. Under its aspects come all practices of astral magic, of the magic of nature and mummies. The 9 is the number which prepares every situation in the astral world for the material world. Number 9 is analogous to the moon, and everything coming under the moon sphere and its influence is symbolized by it. 9 is, of course, the highest number, 2, and any number can be brought to the units 1 to 9 by addition. Although number 9 has also many analogies, these few indications will have to do for the student of the Kabbalah. Number 10. In the order of the 10 Kabbalistic keys, which correspond to the numbers 1-10. Number 10 is the last number. It is the reflection of number 1 in its roughest form. 10 is the number of physical matter, the number of realization, of the cohesion of the earth element with all its aspects. Not without good reason is number 10 called the kingdom in Hebrew Kabbalah. 10 is the number by which everything that has been created physically, that is, the matter in its densest form in the micro and macrocosm, is to be understood. The whole human body in its material form is subject to number 10, logistically also the mineral kingdom with all its states of density, raw materials, iron ore, etc. Furthermore, also the vegetable kingdom and the animal kingdom, in short, everything that we can perceive with our material senses. Number 10 points to the beginning of physical matter. It is the starting point on the way to God. All the influences of the original ideas described earlier in this book, starting from the incarnation of God on earth down to the deepest materialization, that is, condensation, are expressed by number 10. Number 10 is graphically figured by the alchemical symbol of a circle with a cross consisting of 8 arms in its middle, contrary to number 1 which is usually symbolized by a dot or a circle as a sign of infinity. However, number 10 may also be expressed symbolically by a square with a circle drawn in its middle. Each science, including Hermetics, proceeds from number 10. Kabbalistically seen, 10 is not only the number of the material world, but also of the zone girdling the earth. These few analogous conclusions must be sufficient examples for the Kabbalist to enable him to find further analogies himself. The 10 Sephiroth which are mentioned in any Kabbalistic book and which also have reference to the numbers 1 to 10, are attributed to the original divine ideas. The experienced Kabbalist will see that all religious systems, all magical working systems and all Kabbalistic keys may be reduced to the numbers 1-10. To count Kabbalistically means to understand, and master perfectly, all these keys, that is, all these numbers and their analogies. How great this science of the Kabbalistic numbers from 1 to 10 must be and what profound wisdom must be packed into them, will become clear from the words that have been said. When the Creator made his perfect image, that is, man, he gave him the shape by which the 10 fundamental ideas become visible, that is, by the 10 fingers on his hand and the 10 toes on his feet, which are the evidence of his perfection. The Kabbalah therefore justly regards the numbers from 1 to 10 as the most perfect of numbers. It has already been said in one of the preceding chapters that man's 10 fingers have a certain relation to the original ideas of the 10 Sephiroth. The 5 fingers on his right hand have reference to the numbers 1 to 5 and the 5 fingers on his left hand to numbers 6 to 10. The hands with their 10 fingers are, therefore, analogous to the original ideas expressed by the numbers 1 to 9, and the 10 toes alone refer to number 10, by which the lowest plant, that is, the earth, is expressed symbolically. There are gesticulations, mudras, with the fingers held in certain positions, accompanied by Kabbalistic words of power, by which one can work magically, in analogy to the 10 original ideas. From what has been said, a well-experienced Kabbalah expert is able to compile his own working methods for magic Kabbalistic practices by the help of finger positions. These short hints are sufficient for him. If anyone should be especially interested in Kabbalistic gesticulation magic, he is, of course, able to get the detailed methods on this from spiritual beings who know about it. This is just to draw his attention to this possibility.